Okay.
Hello and welcome to the regular Sunday edition of Spurs Diehards TTID, Tottenham Till I Die. Me and Ian will share the hosting responsibilities today, as Ian's got a show, going to be doing a show on Tuesday with Sean Butler and myself, discussing Spurs, the direction of the club, the finances at the club, and things like that. But without further ado, I'll introduce us to our guest. Druzilla's making his debut, a very welcome debut on Spurs Diehards. How are you, Druzilla?
Thanks very much, mate. Appreciate you having me on. Doing very well. Thank you very much.
Can you tell the viewers where your location is?
Currently, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. As I said to you backstage, I'm on the back end or currently enduring a snowstorm. So we've got about 12 inches down on the ground and about another 6 to go before the night's out. So, yeah, it's currently 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm just, looking forward to a conversation about Tottenham.
Mm. And Tom, welcome back. Tom's a regular friend of the show and he makes regular appearances and we cannot get enough of him, right? You know what I mean? So Tom, how are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, very, very well. Bit chilly after working today, but yeah, not too bad.
Got the robes on, start putting the robes on. Ian, how are you,
not
mate?
Not as bad as what Drew's dealing with, though, mind you.
Yeah, I'm
Ian's
good.
a co-founder.
We've missed the worst of the weather. Good song about Kansas City, by the way. I really like that. Beatles did a great version of it, amongst others. But yeah, I think an old Lieber and Stoller song, but someone will correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to the show.
Right, we're going to discuss, obviously, the game against Newcastle. We'll discuss the game first. My normal format is discuss the game, then to discuss the players. We'll see how the time goes. There's lots of transfer stuff. There's other things, lots of other facts I can bring to you on this. As always, I'm a very fact-based presenter. But Tom, we'll start with you. This was the team. Was you happy when you saw that selection?
My fault. Go
That's
back.
Right. Okay.
Tom, to be honest, I didn't know what to expect of a team with everything that was circulating around. So to see as many first-team players was probably quite welcome, really, but also knowing that several of them were ill and in bed for most of the week made me probably more nervous than if we had actually had some youth players in there that were fit and raring to go. Obviously, Draxon coming off at half time, probably telltale sign that he really probably shouldn't have started. But yeah, I mean, good team given the circumstances. Well, I say good team.
Was the only surprise the admission of Maddison? Because if he wasn't sick, he doesn't play against Liverpool. Him and Sarah barred Wednesday, aren't they? They've got a ban. They've got 2 yellow cards each. So we were discussing that prior to the game with Brad Matthews and Stephen Martin, dispenser up there. Is he ill? If he's not ill, should he have been starting?
It's difficult, right? I think Maddison is a fantastic player, and he almost, got an equalising goal for us when he was on. And he's a player who can have those moments. But I just overwhelming feeling with Maddison is one, I don't think he necessarily suits our system too well, and the second thought is that at this present moment in time, we want players who are going to be in the trenches and really graft hard and stuff. And I just don't see him as that player. Like if you want energy and legs in the midfield, then you're not going to pick Maddison, are you? So that's just my kind of overwhelming. I think when the team is all fit and raring to go and all the players are there and we've improved the quality in certain areas, then I think Maddison is easily in that team week after week. But I just think in this present moment, you need grafters. And yeah, I'm not quite sure he's that.
Drew, what was your take on the team selection for this game? Were you like us? We didn't know who was sick or whatever, so we just couldn't.
Right. Yeah, I would kind of echo kind of a little bit what Tom said. Especially, I was pleasantly surprised when Gray and Dragusin were announced, because initially, first thing in the morning, we were getting news over here that possibly we didn't have any centre backs. So I was happy to see those guys. Happy to see Spence. Kind of obviously surprised to see Austin, because I didn't realise Foster had gone down with illness as well. But I mean, overall, I think it's about at the top end of the pitch, at least. It's about all you can expect at the moment. Was I a little bit surprised with Maddison, given that he's not going to be playing for Liverpool, playing against Liverpool? Yes, but again, as you just touched on, I mean, he just doesn't seem to be having the best of times really at the moment. And yeah, I'm kind of with Tom. I don't really see him. That's not to say, I mean, I've seen him do some pretty decent tracking back this season and sort of get into deeper positions and try and play that sort of quarterbacky role. But I think he's struggling himself to find his real position in this team. I think his natural number 10 position gets a little bit crowded out with the tactics that we play. And I think he's used to having players sort of 5 to 10 yards further away from him. And I think he kind of almost crowds himself out.
Ian, your take on the lineup?
Yeah, I didn't study it in the way I usually do. Me and my good lady went to see Paddington in Peru yesterday morning. We were the only two in the cinema, so it ended up being a private screening that wasn't intended to be. But I was the same as the boys. I'd heard about Forster, so I knew that Austin was a likely starter. But when you read that Gray and Dragusin are out, and I'm like, who on earth is going to be? Is it going to be Bissouma and Dorrington or whatever? So, I mean, I think two things from that. One, the team was stronger than I expected, or at least anticipated. And, well, the boys put on a hell of a show, considering a number of them must be suffering from the illness and what have you. You never really play if you're not fully fit. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying about Maddison. I'm inclined to agree that he doesn't really fit. He also continues to disappoint me because he doesn't seem to be willing to risk a longer pass. And I'm not talking about, a 50 yards raking pass from the edge of the penalty area over the head of a fullback into Werner or Son or Johnson running on. I'm talking about a position 30 yards from goal where he's got a 20-yard pass. I mean, I saw it a couple of times yesterday with Reguilon or Son wide on the left. It's not a difficult skill to execute, particularly for a player of his quality. And he doesn't risk it. He always goes for the short pass. And Ange's game does rely on getting into the wide positions as quickly as possible. So he does continue to disappoint me. It's interesting what you say that he didn't play him. But then again, he's maybe taken the view, I was on this show, maybe one of the ones I was hosting a few weeks ago, and saying that I thought Bergvall would need to go out on loan, that he's not developing quite the same way as Archie Gray is. Maybe not surprising. He's Swedish. He's never played in, at this level of football before. So perhaps not a surprise. But Bergvall over the last 4 weeks or so is improving exponentially. And I think if Ange took a view, this is a really good opportunity to see what the boy can do. Then I think that was a good idea. I think the only surprise was he took him off. But again, maybe he's got in mind, I'm going to play him against Liverpool, or he's another one that's slightly under the weather. I think one of the, and this is for all of us, that, when we're talking about social media, we all know better than the manager. We are all the biggest. We are all the biggest experts in football. We know more than the coaches. We know more than the managers. We know more than every other supporter. You know, at some point you have to say, the coach, the head coach, knows what he's doing and why he's doing it, and just let him make those decisions.
Okay, right. We'll move on to the substitutes. I'll familiarise people, the viewers, with some of them. You won't know who they are, what positions they are. After we do the subs, Ian will go through the chat channel and welcome you guys in the chat. There's 9 viewers now. I don't mean they're in the chat at the moment, but
I'll just do it. You know, I'll do the
subs, and then so those that may be watching on playback or viewing, I mean, like Alfie Whiteman's a goalkeeper, so you know the others up to Lancashire's. He scored 23 goals in 22 games in the under-21s last year, and he over 30 goals in the cup competitions when they cleaned up all the competitions. Alfie Dorrington plays mainly as a left-sided centre-back. He prefers his right foot, but he's pretty comfortable on each, and he can actually play at left-back. We know why he was in the squad, I'm sure. And with Malachi Hardy, he's another centre-back, right? So we know why they've been put in there, because of their injury and sickness crisis. And then you've got Callum Elusasi. He's a talented boy. Right, talented boy, but like with a lot of we've got some superb what you see talent in an academy, but they're not all going to make it, and some will be sold on, obviously. So, Tom, your take on the substitutes?
Yeah, I mean, we put who we have available as substitutes. I think not that they're literally clutching at straws for who we can actually put on them. I mean, it's good to see the youngsters on there. Obviously, none of them got an opportunity, but it's what it is at the moment. But it's just looking at that bench. It's just so damning on how badly we left the squad after the summer transfer window.
Yeah.
Like I was saying in a chat earlier that I think, you know, we have to give credit to Lange and his team for how they managed to get rid of players we've been struggling to get rid of for years and years and years, and they managed to get them out the door in the summer. But in clearly putting in so much effort to kind of get rid of all of those players and make sure we get some of the best youngsters around him, we just left ourselves with holes that have, unfortunately, everyone could see we're going to rear their head at some point. But in terms of the substitutes, I think all the players that came on put in a really good shift, and it did look, to me, I mean, I didn't watch the game live because I was working, but from the bits that I've seen and what I was watching and highlights and stuff, it seemed like the team were really fighting for, be it for Ange, be it for each other, whatever it was. They all put in shit. Even Reguilon would have every right to just be like uninterested and everything like that. But you could see he was well up for it, and he really wanted to make a difference, which is, you know, really great to see.
So, Drew, I mean, this shows we're not down to the bare bones. We're down to the bone marrow, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, if things were different, I mean, you're looking at that substitute bench and you're, you know, instead of Whiteman, it's Forster. You know, you could probably still say, you know, potentially some Basuma, Madison on any given day could potentially be on the bench if you've got decent rotation. But, you know, instead of Reggie, you could have, you know, Udogie and Davis. Instead of Lancashire, you got Richarlison. You know, maybe more. Instead of Dorrington and Hardy, you've got, you know, Dragusin and Davies, because in an ideal world, Romero and Van der Ven are playing. You know, Mikey Moore instead of Olasesi. So, you know, I just think we are really, really, like you say, down to the bare bones. And while I'm in agreement again with Tom, you know, you know, and probably the majority of fans, we were left short. I think 2, probably 3, just, you know, 25 to 28-year-olds that have got games in their legs, that have, you know, got 200-300 appearances in them, you know, just some bit more established players, because you could still, you know, given the age of Gray and Bergvall, you could still have them in the squad. But yeah, I mean, going back to this, I mean, this is the best substitute bench we could possibly do, given the situation. So I can't be too sour about it, really.
Yeah,
I agree. I haven't really got a lot to add to that. We are down to the bare bones. Yeah, we're at least getting the games played. It would be nice if we were winning 1 or 2. That would just take a lot of the pressure off. But I mean, it simply is what it is. There's no point in whinging any more than we are about it. It is what it is. But I don't know if you've got a graphic up with the expected dates of return, but I know that Moore's relatively close. Richarlison is relatively close. I don't think Davis was only meant to be out an extra couple of weeks, so he must be maybe another week away. So I don't know. Forster's ill, so he's not going to be out. I wouldn't think long term. So you just hope we can get 1 or 2 back. Plus, of course, we need 1 or 2 in. You know, there's talk we're looking to get at least 3. We've got the goalkeeper, but again, he's one for the future. I mean, whether at 21 he's going to come in and press, and of course Austin did very, very well yesterday.
That's the irony, isn't it?
No surprise. Well, maybe a little bit of a surprise. But Ali McCoy's named him man of the match, and his ability. I mean, I've seen him a couple of times, and I thought, oh, he's not very good with his feet. But the one thing he did was clear the bloody ball. He decided, no, he's not going to mess about. He just hoofed it when he needed to hoof it. If you lose it, if you're going to lose the ball, lose it 50 yards from goal, not 25 yards from goal, which is what caused their first goal. But he made a couple of good stops, and his control of his penalty area was actually vastly superior to Vicario. So, yeah. I mean, just get through. If we can get through relatively unscathed, and even if we can get some sort of narrow win on Wednesday night and have an opportunity to go to Anfield with something, with players back and new players in, the season hopefully will pick up from here.
Yeah, fine. Okay, then we'll if you go through the chat, Ian, we've probably only got a few.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Okay, and then we'll go on to the game. Good evening, Graham.
Hi, Graham. And then Drew said hi, and then at the back, and then up the yids from Adam Harris. So
okay, welcome, Adam Harris.
If you're still there, you want to say hi, please say hi.
We get a lot of views on playback anyway, so because obviously with all these podcasts. You can't even set a time without clashing against lots of other podcasts.
Right.
No,
and lots of them are sort of have got, because we're only 6 months old, they're a lot further along the line than we are at present.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll start with the game, and we started well. We looked eager. We looked fresh-legged after our 5-6 day layoff. Tom, 4 minutes, slanky-headed goal from first-time Porro cross.
Yeah, that inverted fullback crossing from out wide. I mean, that's just a miracle, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's most probably Porro's biggest asset is his crossing. And actually, there was a few other opportunities later in the game, which, were narrowly headed over by Solanke and stuff where, from a Porro cross. So, yeah, great start at the races straight away like we needed to be, and good cross, good headed goal from Solanke getting across his man. So it's solid stuff. And I think if we can get Porro into that position more often, be it by not inverting as much, which we're definitely not doing that as much at the moment, or be it by giving him a crack a bit further up the pitch, which is, something people have spoken about for a long time now. I mean, even when we first signed him, I was like, oh, this guy used to be a right winger at Man City, so interesting that we're signing him as a right back. But it's one of his biggest assets. He whips a great ball in, and Solanke is great at running across his man and getting on the end of it as well. So I feel like we should utilise that a lot more.
Drew, a rare-headed goal by Solanke, because what a lot of fans watching this and listening in won't realise that Solanke's now made 151 Premier League appearances, 150 league appearances, and he's only scored 6 headers.
Wow.
So it could put to the myth that we ain't using Solanke properly. We're not getting enough crosses into the box. And it actually works out that 1 in 45 crosses results in a goal. So you can see why coaches have adapted. They've got all this information. This is why you're seeing inverted, fallbacks and things like that, because they know that the percentages for them achieving getting success out of that are higher than playing the old traditional way, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, the one thing I would say about the move, I mean, obviously, it was very nice. In hindsight, looking back at it, because I watched some of the game back this morning, sort of extended highlights, and you have Bergvall making the great run through midfield. I think was it pushing it to Johnson, who then gives it to Porro, who then crosses. Now, it was a very nice move. It's great. I'm not complaining. We scored a goal, but in hindsight, you look at that move. And that move could have been, if we have a right winger that arguably could beat a man and put a cross in himself, you've got Bergvall passing to Johnson, Bergvall passing to insert right winger here, who then beats his man potentially or puts in a first-time cross. And then that alleviates the need for Porro to move further up the field, which then makes us a little bit safer because you haven't got everybody loaded up on the right-hand side. Because if that ricochets off, and you've got a fast midfielder on the receiving end of a ricocheted ball, all of a sudden our right side is completely decimated, and you've got pretty much a clean run through on goal. Unless you've got your six or your midfielders dropping back. So yes, it was a nice move. Yes, I appreciate Porro and his crossing ability, but I'd like to see a little bit more from that right wing that doesn't necessarily involve Porro having to get that high all the time.
Right, we'll move on from that bit because Ian will have a lot to say about this. 6 minute golden equaliser from Guimara's pass.
Yeah.
Handball, Joe Linton. This has been in the media a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah. Can I go back though, please? I do want to talk about the handball, but
Okay.
there was Bye, Adrian. I didn't mean to put you off. There is I think it was on 442 an analysis of Solanke, and it talked about where Solanke's heat map and where he scored goals from, and he scores Adrian has gone, so I'm on this now. I think he's probably trying to pull up the graphic and put himself off by mistake. Solanke does score very few goals with his head. Always has, despite the fact that he's a big guy, he doesn't score that many with his head. But if you look at his heat map where he scores goals, if you take a line from the edges of the 6-yard box, the corners of the 6-yard box, and then draw a line up to say the penalty straight line to the penalty spot, and then draw it across. That's the box where he scores his goals in. That's the positions he gets into, and he scores with his feet, predominantly with his feet, not with his hands. And in fact, what was interesting is they did a comparison with Kyogo, the Celtic player, and their goal-scoring heat maps were almost identical. So that's why I think he was brought in. But it is good to see him getting headers, and it's good. You've got to vary it a bit rather than pussyfooting the ball. Just get an early cross in. And Solanke was very strong. The goalkeeper, the defender was poor. But yeah, you want to talk about the handball?
Yeah, hang on. I just want to try and get this.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. You want to get that graphic up.
The thing, so Drew, I completely agree with. We need a one-on-one specialist winger who is keen to take his man on the outside and inside and vary up the game and be that like. And Johnson is just not it. Like Johnson he's a guy who is on the end of the cross, but the problem is, and he's good at doing that. The problem is that he's not offering anything outside of that for us. He's not even really. Like the last game against Wolves, I said he actually grafted hard. He actually tracked back. He challenged. But again, he didn't really do. He just went back to his old ways in this game a little bit. Whilst all the other players were kind of putting in a shift, it just felt like he was a bit missing. So completely agree. Like with the crosses from Porro, like 100% Ian, you've got to switch it up every now and again. Sometimes putting an early cross in like that, even if you don't score directly from the cross, it causes chaos and and the other thing it does as well is that when that ball from that moment on goes back to Porro in that position, those centre backs are instantly going to drop a couple of yards because they're thinking that whipped ball is going to come in, which then gives you more space on the edge of the box. So, and that's why I actually in this game with Austin sometimes hitting a kick further up the pitch, Okay, yeah, you might not win it in that moment, but what it starts doing is if a team goes, well, sometimes you're playing it short, sometimes you're playing it long, the defense is not going to know what that you're going to do. So again, they're going to drop 5 yards, which then means that you can play that short ball out and they're not already on top of you. So that variation is key. And I feel like with Forster in goal, he's not really ever kicking it long, and therefore we're getting the pressure because they know he's not great with his feet. He's getting pressure put on him earlier. But if he just every now and again just hit those long balls and they just were like, well, actually, he's just hitting it long every time, that would give him more time and space to actually deal with.
I agree that mixing up's important. They weren't anticipating the ball coming in that early. Their defenders. No. 100%, Tom. 100%.
Do you want to talk about the handball now, Ian?
I do. Have you been able to get the graphic up? Because it doesn't matter if you can't, because I can.
Can you see it?
I can now.
Right. I can't see any of you now. I can see the graphic though.
I'll pick it up. I'll put it up on my phone. Look, the bottom line is it wasn't an infringement. Much as we all hate it and think, well, he stopped the ball with his hand. The ball was going to, I can't remember who it was, whichever Porro, wherever it was of our.
Gamares, I think, to Golden it went to.
Yeah.
From Linton to Gamares to Golden.
Yeah, no. But who was Bergvall trying to pass it to?
Yeah.
Was it Porro? And he stops the ball with his hand and it kills the ball dead. And he plays it to Joe Linton, and Joe Linton goes on and scores. Joe Linton passes it to Gordon, who goes on and scores. But right, anyway, look, for the purpose of determining handball offences, the upper boundary of the arm is in line with the bottom of the armpit. So, right, it passes that bit because it hits the hand, right? So that is an offence. It is an offence if a player deliberately touches the ball with their hand arm, for example, moving the hand arm towards the ball. Well, it fails that test because although the hand was down, Joe Linton doesn't move his hand to the ball. It just doesn't. It hits his hand. Okay? Touches the ball with their arm and hand when it has made their body unnaturally bigger. A player is considered to have made their body unnaturally bigger when the position of their hand arm is not a consequence or justifiable by the player's body movement for that specific situation. By having their hand arm in such a position, the player takes the risk of the hand arm being hit and the ball being penalised. And you couldn't have a better example than Delete this afternoon. If everybody saw the Man United game, where his arm is up in the air and the ball deflects off his body onto his arm. The arm is in an unnatural position because it's up. It's not there to balance. It's therefore an infringement. And then, and then scores in the opponent's goal. This is what a lot of people. It led to a goal, and scores directly from their hand arm, even if accidental, including by the goalkeeper. So the bottom line then, if the goal scorer handles it just before scoring. So if Joe Linton handles the ball, smacks his left foot through it into the corner, it's disallowed. The other thing, and it's not in that part of the law, but it's elsewhere, is the referee also has to take into account the proximity of the kicker to the player that handles it. Bergvall is, 3-4 yards away and hits the ball hard at Joe Linton. So he's got no realistic prospect of getting out the way of it. So it's a bitch. I mean, it is an absolute bitch, but it is just, that's what the law is. And if you go back, I have a gripe that they keep changing the handball law, because every time they come up with something like this is about the fifth rewrite, is something happens and they say that's not right. And I'll give you a perfect example of that was, 4 years ago, if you remember, Lucas Moura was running through towards the goal against Sheffield United. He gets upended. The defender whacks the ball at him from almost point blank range. Mora's arms are on the floor protecting his head because he's been not tripped over. The ball hits his arm, rebounds to Harry Kane, who sticks the ball in the back of the net. And because there was an arm involved in the whole movement, the goal was disallowed. And it was perfectly ridiculous. So they've now come up with this as I'm sure Spurs wasn't the only example. This is an example. I know people don't like it. And of course, it was a bad goal to lose. We lost the ball. And that was, to me, that was the problem. Us losing the ball where we lost the ball. Rather than the referees made a mistake. And if you look, the referee looked at it, VAR looked at it. I've seen Mike Dean in the Sky Studios looked at it. Keith Hackett, ex-chair of the PMGOL, top referee, refereed our FA Cup final with Sheffield, with Manchester City, amongst others. Top class referee, all saying there's no infringement. It's just not. And we have to move on. It was a bastard of a goal to lose, pardon my language. But it's just not an infringement in law.
I disagree, but I'm going to throw it out to you two. Lois, I guess they're good guesses. I disagree, and I'll come to my point. Like, Tom Drula, was it handball or not? I mean, I'm not saying for sour grapes anyway, just like because the game's done, the result's done. I'm not moaning about the result, but what was your take, Tom?
I apologise. It sounds like my washing machine's about to take off through the thing. I don't know if you can hear that.
No, we can't.
No, that's all right then. Okay, a question for you, Ian. Take the written law out of it. Do you think it's handball?
Well, when I refereed, and we're talking last century here. The law simply said if it was accidental, then it wasn't handball. And in my view, that was a classic accidental. He doesn't intention. He doesn't move his hand to the ball, and that's the criteria. The second thing is I was taught when I was going through the training class, it doesn't matter whether it's a goal or stops a goal, whatever. It's the fact that if short of amputation, the player can't get out the way of the ball, it's not a handball. So that's what I was brought up with. And yeah, you can go back to the old law and say if there's handball in the movement, in the football movement, then it gets automatically penalised if a goal's scored. But that takes you back to that ridiculous Lucas Moura situation at Bramall Lane. Or you go to the hockey situation, which we seem to be moving closer to, and saying anytime there's contact between the ball and the hand, that is an infringement. And you'll have 10 penalties a game. So, I sometimes feel I'm pissing in the wind sometimes with this, because I know a lot of football fans don't like it, but when they say about trouble with referees is they know the laws, but they don't know the game. And I think as an ex-referee, I'll put it back and say a lot of players and so-called pundits and fans, they know the game, but they don't know the laws. And in fact, even Michael Dawson said on the TV that it's not. I don't want that given. So you can argue all you want, but it is the law, and the referee and the VAR applied the law properly.
Yeah,
did they though?
My only gripe with it is I don't think he intentionally handballed it. So 100%, I don't think he stuck his hand out to it. However, his hand was behind his back and moved out to his side in between as the ball was being kicked. And he's running, so your arms are going to move when you're wrong. But my biggest gripe is just why is there is this constant rewriting of the handball law so that no one knows what it is or anything like that. It's just like, it got rewritten when it hits Sissoko's arm here. It got rewritten. it got rewritten after Mora fell. Why does it always seem to be Tottenham Hotspur? It got rewritten after a penalty was given against us, against Newcastle, when Dyer jumped up.
Carroll headed the ball onto the back of Eric Dyer's
Dyer, yeah, that one, yeah.
In the last minute, ironically, against Newcastle, which at least Steve Bruce had the good grace to be embarrassed in the interviews afterwards about one, the penalty award, and secondly, how his team had got a point in a game. But, we frankly, as ever with Newcastle, we played them off the park again. But Tom, you make a really good point. The law, when I started refereeing, the law said, Law 12 was really quite simple. It was an infringement for direct free kick or penalty if an opponent, or if you intentionally push, trip, kick, barge, whatever it was, intentionally an opponent, punishable by a free kick, a direct free kick outside the box, or if it's committed by a defender in his own penalty area, a penalty kick. And the same was, it simply said, handles the ball, intentionally handles the ball. And and I tell you who's responsible for this. It's actually Ellery and Kalina. Obviously decided that there was too much inconsistency. Also that they were clearly the only two officials capable of refereeing a football match in the history of the game, and decided they would rewrite the laws to make them such that there would be no ambiguity. This all happened after, a lot of it happened after Italia 90, that they would try to define every situation. Also, someone came up with the idea, hang on, although it's been in the law since time immemorial, you can't read a player's mind. So you don't know whether he intentionally does something or not. You can only, but the law worked perfectly fine. When I refereed, that was the law. Is it intentional? And from that point of view, is the player acting in a manner that's, more likely than not to, sticks his leg out, he's going to trip him over if he misses the ball. So you call that a free kick, and no one has a quibble about it. And, they've had to continually rewrite the laws. I tell you what, I wouldn't want to try and pass the referee's exam now, because the law is incredibly difficult. I mean, to actually read and learn and whatever. Okay, sorry, someone just needs to be banned. There you go.
While you're doing that, Drew.
That's it. So I've done that. Sorry.
Drew, the crowd tried to help the referee out, who I thought was poor yesterday, but we'll come on to that. I mean, that's a different story. All around, everyone shouted handball straight away. You're on mute, I think, Drew.
Well, there we go. I think it's one of those, one of those scenarios where it might be a foul somewhere else on the pitch, but for some reason it's not a foul in the box, so you don't get the penalty. I feel like it's one of those situations where, given where it was on the field and given what resulted in the ball hitting the player's hand, I would think common sense should have been used, because I think if any club were to have been on the receiving end of that, they would probably appreciate the ball, the goal being chalked off and the ball being taken back to a spot and it being called handball. I think universally, there isn't a team on the receiving end of that says, no, it's fine, we'll have the goal conceded. We've got no problem with it. I
agree with that.
Everybody. So I think common sense, the laws of the game are one thing, but I think the referees are told, in instances, to use some common sense. And I think it would have been the sensible thing to do, to have pulled it back, called it handball, everyone got on with the game. And I think you kind of forget about it, and it becomes one of those things that just, in the history of football, one of those things that gets forgotten pretty quickly. So, yeah.
I couldn't agree more, Drew, because I feel like if that was given as handball, no one would be debating anything.
Right.
And I think that speaks volumes as to how the law is clearly not correct or fit for purpose in the present thing. Because literally, if that was given as handball, I think the thing that bugs me the most is that if that ball had just grazed his arm and then he'd gone and scored himself, he'd be given as handball. But the fact that it's absolutely smashed into his hand so much that it's completely changed the direction of the ball and it's fell to another player who's then passed to someone else to score, it's now not handball, makes literally no sense whatsoever. What is the difference between it hitting his arm and him scoring, and it hitting his arm and him passing it to someone else and them scoring? Like, there is literally no difference. The same offence has been caused in both scenarios. And like, it's like I said, it's not like it's like sort of grazed his arm and just kind of carried on in the direction it was going. It has literally gone in the complete opposite direction to where it was, and it was fully on the hand. It wasn't like an arm or up near the top. It was. For me, by the letter of how the law is written, it's not handball. But for me personally, that should be a handball every single time, because it's had such an influence. It's called football. It's had such an influence on what has then happened in the game. Like, that goes past Joe Linton to one of our players. We're on an attack, but instead we've conceded a goal because it's hit Joe Linton's arm. I just don't understand how the law could be in such a and the thing for me, right, as well, is that I reckon if VAR didn't exist, I reckon a referee gives that as handball, because he's clearly seen it's hit his hand. Like, there's no way he can't see it's hit his hand. But I think that referee's gone, well, I'll let this play out because VAR will sort it.
My take on it, it was handball. My take, it was handball. Even when some things are going fast, Linton knows he's an experienced player, right? Even in a split second when the ball's coming up to you, you don't want to give away a free kick. He could have like pulled his arm in. He could have pulled his arm, and he didn't. And he knew what he was. He knew it, and he didn't know. Obviously, everyone who's around him, because the ball had to deflect to one of their players, so they had a stroke of fortune with that, didn't they? But to me, he could have pulled his arm in. I mean, like, it's done. I get the perceptions here, different perceptions, and whether it is or it isn't. And I am a biased Spurs fan anyway, so like, it's handball to me, right? Okay, right.
I don't know. It's just balmy to me how football's got to a place where, like, the law just changes every season with no consistency, so no one knows what's going on. And okay, I guess you have to rewrite some of the rules with the fact that you have technology now, but it just feels like referees aren't really refereeing games anymore, and that they're just relying on a person in a box. And like, the thing is, for me as well, is like, if it's going to be someone else in a studio refereeing the game, then why not use it for everything? Like, the amount of times that you see a ball clip an opponent, it goes out for our throw in and it gets given the other way, and you literally see it on a replay 2 seconds later, and you're like, well, that would literally take 2 seconds to correct that decision, but they don't use it for that, but then they're using it for other things. It's like, I don't know. I want VAR to stay because I want a fair and equal game, but I don't know. For some reason, in the Premier League, we just don't seem to be able to do it properly, whereas in European games, it seems to be absolutely fine. And it always seems like the Premier League and the English referees think that they can do everything better than everywhere else, yet they seem to be routinely the worst at doing things. Like, they turned down technology for like the offsides. They didn't want the automated offsides. Now they're getting the automated offsides. Like, it's just balmy to me how they always think they can do it better, but always end up doing it worse. Interestingly, on VAR, Wednesday's game against Liverpool, any VAR decisions made or used, the referee is announcing to the stadium there and then, which is so much better, because, and the thing is as well, that would have been hilarious had that been on Sunday, because if he had literally had to go on a microphone to the stadium, go, goal has stood because despite hitting the hand, because he didn't score it, he passed to someone else who scored it, it's not disallowed. That would have just been absolutely hilarious, the abuse they would have gotten for that. But I think that needs to be done, because as fans in the stadium, like, they put up on the big screen 10 minutes later what the blooming VAR Twitter account decided to type up as some lame ass reason for.
It was a yawn moment, wasn't it? Far too late. It was a yawn moment.
Yeah, right? What's the point? 10 minutes later, I don't even know. Don't even know what you're talking about now. Like, I can't even remember. Like, there was one for Livramento in the penalty area or something like that. It came up 13 minutes later. I wasn't there, but I've heard people talk about it. I'm just like, what's the point 13 minutes later when everyone's like, what is it? Which one was that? There was about 5 handballs. But which one are they talking about?
And by then we were angry about quite a few other decisions.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to come back to referee Ian for this one, right? Okay, 17 minutes, burn yellow card for foul on Johnson in centre circle.
Yeah. Well, no argument about that.
No,
I mean, I think you've gone further than I would have gone. I mean, Joe Linton committed 2 quite bad fouls early on in the game that he got away with. I thought that was particular. I thought Andy Madley did have a very poor game. It's always difficult sometimes when there's marginal decisions. Lots of them, you think, well, every 50-50 decision like that, you're going to upset somebody. So you're on a hide into nothing. But I thought he had a poor game. I thought that Joe Linton should have at least had 1 yellow card early doors. And Burn, they were putting it about a bit, but that should have been at least their second yellow card, and it wasn't. That was their first, I think.
Have we got any more in the chat to go through, and then I'll come to Tom straight away?
No, nothing
Okay,
desperate.
then. All right, go on, Tom.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, the thing for me is, I've watched Newcastle a few times this year, and since Eddie Howe's taken over with his like little Yorkshire Terrier sidekick Tyndall, like I don't know what it is, but they just, and I don't want to say that there's any bias or anything like that, but every time I watch it, Joe Linton is always committing these fouls over and over again, and just doesn't seem to get.
If I can just stop you for a second, because I made a mistake going to 17 minutes. I meant to go here. Carry on about your Joe Linton.
Yeah, it just feels like, end of the day, like if you give a yellow card, like there was multiple yellow card offences from Joe Linton. I'm not saying that he then gets sent off, but what I am saying is that he then has to adjust how he's bullying, like being a bully on the pitch, because he can't do that anymore because he's then running the risk. That being said, Burn gets a yellow card, handballs it, which and stops an attack, which had any other situation is a flat out yellow card. But for some reason, because he's already on a yellow, he doesn't get another yellow. That's just
Drew, let's come to Drew because he hasn't spoken for a while. This deserved a yellow card minimum, didn't it? He was generally
I'm actually as we were pulling up the minutes, I've actually got the game replaying. So I'm actually looking at the incident now while we're talking about it. And I mean, I'm all for everybody getting stuck in, but from the offset, I mean, I think it's clumsy. I don't think there's any real intent to throw an elbow. I think he's trying to steady himself, and in doing so kind of puts his forearm kind of through the side of his head. It's very, very clumsy. I would just like to think, I think the problem is that 14 minutes and 50 seconds in, I think the referee's already let the game go. And that's not what you want from a referee at this level of the game. I mean, we've already had a couple of instances, and I think he's letting too many things just go. And I'm not saying that, we're the home team, so therefore we should just expect that the away team get a little bit more leeway. But I just think he doesn't have command of the game. And we're also playing with some young kids, and the young kids are kind of getting bullied, and it's a Newcastle tactic. And I don't really know, other than telling them to just hold their ground and just, try and give as good as they get without him, causing an infringement. I'm not sure what you can tell these kids to do. I mean, on a perfect day when you've got maybe a Romero in there, or you've got a fully fit Dragusin that's not obviously halfway through an illness, I'd like to think maybe there's a little bit more pushback. But I don't see. I personally am not sure that it's a yellow card. I think it's just a very, very clumsy challenge. I don't think there's an intent to throw an elbow.
It's just the old raised arms issue to steady yourself. I'm a bit like that with that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, and we're also, when it comes to elbows, I still remember Fashnu flooring Gary Mabbott, and I still, so those sorts of things, I'm sort of a little bit passionate about. Like, if you see it with intent, I'm usually the first one to sort of make a noise or scream at it. And as I say, my initial reaction was like, "You dummy," do you know what I mean? Kind of get up and stop throwing yourself around.
Yeah, I think the difficulty with elbows to faces and stuff like that is, you are playing football. Your arms are always braced in a position where you're protecting yourself. Joelinton is like 6'2", 6'3". So if I was playing against him, his natural elbow height is going to be at my face. I mean, I dealt with it growing up quite a lot, getting arms and elbows in the face because I was just small when I was younger. So I was always at that height where I was getting. So it is a difficult one. I mean, if not that incident itself may not have been worthy of yellow, but I mean, totaling up all of the infringements that Joelinton made before he eventually got a yellow, he should have had a yellow long before he got the yellow he got. So I don't think that incident alone was necessarily worthy of a yellow, but the totaling
the
up,
accumulation, I would agree with that. Yeah,
definitely should have. And the thing is, it is a tactic by Newcastle, and as long as they're sticking within the rules of the game or the laws of the game and stuff like that, and they're being punished like how they should be getting punished for the infringements they're causing, and there's absolutely no issue with them playing in that way. They're finding a way to ruffle teams' feathers and gain an advantage. Like, I don't have an issue with that, but that's where the referees need to actually be authoritative enough to actually, he could have put a marker on that game pretty early on with a yellow for them and said, look, you can keep doing that, but I will be punishing you for it. I'll let some things, go. I want a game that moves on. But it just felt like I think as soon as the handball decision was made, it just felt like the referee completely at his pants and didn't know
when you're 16 minutes into a game and you already feel like the official is a Newcastle fan, there's a bit of a problem.
Yeah,
exactly. There's very little balance. Little balance in the first 15 minutes.
Okay, we'll move on. Ian, 21 minutes, and Austin gives us a chance to show us what he's made of, say from Gordon, played in from Isaac.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I can remember each one specifically.
No, I don't expect you to. I'll put them down in case you do,
The important thing was Austin really didn't do very much wrong at all. And his goalkeeping, as in his ability to keep the ball out of the net, was excellent. I think, as I say, the thing that most impressed me, apart from his shot stopping, let's be honest, all goalkeepers are good shot stoppers, because that's your starting point as a goalkeeper, is being able to keep the ball out the back of the net. But I was really impressed with the way that he commanded his area. That's what really impressed me about him. All
right, Tom. 31 minutes, Gamirez to Murphy to Isaac, who pokes the ball wide. That was close, that ball rolling past that. Eric didn't go in, I don't know,
He should have scored. It's poor from Isaac to not score that, really. And the irony being the one that he does score was luckily flicked onto him, and he almost scuffed that as well. But he should have scored that. No doubt about that, really. I mean, the thing with Newcastle, they are a good team, and they were struggling early on, and Eddie Howe's tweaked things a little bit, and they are a good team with good players. Like Isaac, I don't think he'll be at Newcastle next year. I think he will have a big money move somewhere, and if people can't afford it, then he will still be there. But him, Gordon, Gimares, Botman, who obviously it was his first game back, he was fantastic. Centre back that we were linked with for a while. They've got a lot of good players. It's whether or not they can hold on to them. So I'm not expecting us to just rock up and turn over Newcastle, especially when half our team is missing. So it's just irritating that I don't want to sound like Ange, but it is irritating that the game really did just not from the off feel like it was, fair and equal for both sides. So, but yeah, I mean, Isaac should have scored that. They carved us open with quite ease there, and he should have scored, really.
Drew, I mean, this is where stats get me. 35, and I get the stats off at one football, right? So 35 min. Stats show that it's a very even game. Well, I don't know if that works out, because my eye test at the stadium was, I thought Newcastle were, a bit of a distance ahead of us in the first half.
Yeah, they started to get a little bit of a foothold. I think, unfortunately, we just don't. It's just not Fortress Tottenham at the moment, is it? And again, I have to kind of curb my disappointment knowing how injury, and people go on about injuries, the excuse of injuries, but I think it's necessary and valid, because I think you're running on a team, you're a team running on empty, and then on top of that they got obviously the illness running through the squad, so I can't give them too much of a hard time, and to be honest with you, I would be a bit of a hypocrite. Because in the last couple of weeks, given the situation with the squad, I've actually been asking for a little bit of game management and not for us to go kind of burning ourselves out in the first 20 minutes and then finding that at the end of the game, the last 20 minutes, we're absolutely gassed and we don't have anything. So yes, they got on top of us a little bit, but... as we'll get on to, the second half, I think, was a lot different and showed a lot more promise.
Yeah. Ian.
Yeah.
38th minute, Isaac. It's 1-2 to Newcastle. Tonali to Murphy to Dragerson, deflection.
Yeah. From their point of view, it was a good goal. Ours. I mean, the one thing that I liked about it, or didn't like about it, was where the cross went in. That, in cricket, what Geoffrey Boycott calls that corridor of uncertainty between the goalkeeper and the centre half, where Dragerson has to stick a leg out, absolutely has to. And the danger then is, of course, I'm not sure if Isaac wasn't there, it was going to go in, but I think there was every chance it might have done. That's the sort of ball I'd like to see us putting more in early between the fullback and the between the goalkeeper and the centre half. It was actually I hate to tell you this, it was a real typical Ange goal, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to move to the second half now, because after that, I mean,
I'm just going to put a link up. I've been looking. This I know it's not masses watching at the moment, but that should come up in the chat. I've got it in the chat. Why has that not come up? It's not come up. I've put a thing in with a link to the goal, and it's come up on my phone where I've done it. This analysis of Solanke, I would recommend every Tottenham supporter watches it. Absolutely, I'll put it onto some of the WhatsApp groups as well. But I don't know why it's not come up. It's come up. I've got Chin's 2 comments about game management. Well, we can discuss that.
Yeah, we've got all that coming after we finish the game.
I agree, and I think that's probably about the end. Their second goal. The game management. Well, we talk about it every week. I've posted a thing in the link, and I don't know why that's not come up. So let me try it again. I don't know why that wouldn't.
All right. While you're doing that,
anyway, while I'm doing that, anyway, look, I've posted it again. So I don't know why. Anyway, go on.
Early game management from Ange.
I can't post a link like that. I don't know.
Regular for Dragerson.
Yeah.
Tom.
Sorry. Yeah, it was apparently a sub made because Dragerson was just too ill to carry on. Which, makes you question, should he have even started in the first place? But again, Reguilon came on. I thought he did really well, all things considered. And the other thing I'd say is that I think Jed Spence did really well at centre back as well.
Brilliant.
So okay,
yeah.
Drew, 48th minute penalty appeal. Ball played on the arm of Livramento by Murphy, but referee pulls play back for a foul on Dubravka. I think the referee played a good part in getting the atmosphere at the stadium yesterday, because you always find, I find that sometimes you can do have a good bad decision by the ref because it really gets the
absolutely.
crowd. I mean, so
yeah, no, we kind of need that siege mentality at the moment. So I'm all for it. I mean, I would quite like, I would like not so many things to go against us. But yeah, I think just to touch on Reggie coming in, and I'm always of the mind, I completely understand, if he's only, if they're having to take him off, should he really been playing in the first place? I get that, but then also what I would like to, I'm always hopeful, and I say that with a pinch of salt, knowing that this is our medical team that I'm talking about, but just in general, I would like to hope, because this is, especially in the context of like the VDV and the Romero situation, I would hope that if somebody starts, it's because across the board there's an agreement that for the most part it's you are fit and able to start. And the reason that I think that should be the case is because you can always plan on saying, for argument's sake, okay, so a player's got 45 minutes in them, they've got 60 minutes in them. It's all, you can always start them, see how they go, and take them off as necessary. But if you put them on too early, and you've got a player that can only do 15, 20 minutes, and you put them on at half time, you can lead to issues where you maybe potentially have to sub off the sub. So I can kind of see sort of both sides of it. I thought hats off to not only Spence, but I think Reggie, because he's obviously not had game time. He's obviously been sitting on the sidelines, and from the most part, from what I can hear, kind of been used as a training cone. And he's come in and he's still shown, and all right, fair play, naive. He's somewhat putting himself in the shop window, but I think he's come on, and it would be very, very easy for him to sort of give 70, 80%, because at the moment we just need somebody to come on. But I think he's come out, and I think he's actually started to put in a shift. And I'm of the mind that, and I said this to Sean, I think yourself, when we were talking yesterday, and I've kind of reserved judgment on the goalkeeper thing for the time being, because I've been doing some homework, and I think the new keeper actually might be a little bit promising. But I was of the mind yesterday that if you've got Austin that can play like that, and you've got Reggie that can come in and do a job, why would you necessarily spend what is going to be, not a huge budget? Why would you use some of that on yet another goalkeeper and another left back when you've kind of half sold those things until at least the summer, and you can go out and actually put a little bit more money on a position that's really needed in the front line, maybe? So I would say hats off to Reggie. But yeah, Spence, I think, deserves all the praise in the world. I think he was fantastic. And yeah, I think just to go back to this this thing that you're mentioning, dubious as to whether anybody would really pull that back and give the penalty. But like I think you're right. The referee at that time was doing everything he could to get the Spurs fans back on, back into the game.
I think Ian says he's here. If you are here, Ian, you need to go back. Just log out and come into not the studio, but where the show is showing, and log back in, because I can't see you if you're here. Right. I don't see you, otherwise I'd drag you in. Right. So next banner. Right. Yeah. This was Tom, 54th minute, sorry, Kulusevski, Sarr. I think did Bradford go? I can't remember this, but I remember Johnson hitting the post. I wasn't quite sure.
Sarr was a shot from the edge of the box, wasn't it? That Bradford got down low to his left hand side to make a good save for. But yeah, I mean, we can go through every little thing that happened in the second half, but we put in a good fight in the second half. We created chances, and arguably should have probably scored. If not one, maybe two. Sarr good from the edge of the box to getting those shots in and stuff. That's probably one of his best assets to his game, and as well as his legs with running. I just wish that Sarr could be a bit more safe with his passing. I know that sounds really weird because I want other players to actually be a bit more risky with their passing, but he just seems to give the ball away a lot. And he gives the ball away a lot in transitional phases, which then is what puts us in this need to suddenly be sprinting back towards our goal. But he's young. Hopefully that's something that develops. And to be honest, I think I've mostly enjoyed Sarr coming on as a sub this year because he just brings a whole load new energy when he comes on, and actually that's really effective from the subs bench and stuff. So when we're winning and when we're losing, you need that energy. So it's a good sub to have. But I mean, he's good enough to be starting games as well. Just like I said, wish he could stop with the silly giveaways of the balls. But we created lots of chances in the end, and we were pushing, and Reguilon flashed across the box. Johnson a flash cross against the box in the last sort of 10 minutes or so. With Slanky hitting the crossbar, being saved, but no corner given. There was lots that was promising.
Early game management, Ian, here with these subs in the 62th minute, and then hooray! Joe Linton gets a yellow card for a foul at about time. He could have been sent off twice in this game, I reckon.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. Although you'll have to get his name right next time.
Okay.
Joe Linton is his last name.
It's Joe Linton. Linton. It's all one word. You spelled it right, but it's all one word.
Okay. I don't know. What is his first name?
Oh,
I can think of some first names for him.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But... Yeah, and that was, I think, you go back to, that was the problem with Andy Madley's refereeing. I mean, it was weak and it was inconsistent, and of course, when you've got decisions like the handball that leads to a goal, you're on a hiding to nothing as a referee. But
they certainly tried to bully us. We talk about the players. I mean, they even tried it. They knew we had a substitute goalkeeper in, so they tried that old pressing him in the box. I mean, they were quite aggressive, but we have to deal with that. I mean, we have to deal with that, right? I mean, Botman gets a card here. Let's move on because I want to go through the players.
Yeah.
Maddison close range from a free kick. Spurs go close again. John flashes across the goal before Reguilon did the same from the left. This was a good chance to score a goal. Then they pick up another yellow card. Isaac, yellow card for War of Words with Gray. And this is the possession stats. Spurs had more than 70%. This was the second half, I think. Then 90. Kulusevski to Slanky, who heads wide. Yeah, I thought he should have done better. Then Austin saves from Willock. And because we had about 12, 14 minutes of overtime, from Solanke, and then to virtually the end. This was like the end of the game now, and we lose 2-1. Right. So what I normally do, Tom, Austin performance. What do you think?
Well, he did everything that a goalkeeper should do. It's difficult because one thing that's kind of bugged me a little bit is there's always what are we going to do with Fakari? You go, what are we going to? I mean, a goalkeeper's main priority is to stop the ball going in the back of the net, right? Like, besides a goalkeeper, doing an Onana and letting it go through his legs and underneath him, and there's not much really you can expect of a keeper. Some keepers will save shots that others don't, and some. I just never thought he was going to come in and do a bad job. But the thing is, it's one game, and where you start to see whether goalkeepers are elite in comparison to other ones is how they perform over many games, not just a one-off. Like, I can think about many times we've played Newcastle and Tim Krul has put in, saving, making 11, 12, 13 saves and stuff like that. Next week, doing clangers. So everyone can have a good game. But I thought he did everything he needs to do. And I'll be honest with you, watching the bits of the game that I've watched and stuff, it really felt like Ange said to him, nothing stupid. Nothing stupid. It's your first game. I know we want to play it short and out of the box, but when you feel like you need to hit it long, hit it long, and he did that, and he done everything that you needed him to do. And I know obviously we've got this new keeper in who does look pretty good, but there's only so much you can tell from YouTube compilations and stuff like that. But he looks good with the ball at his feet. He looks pretty commanding of his area, and I agree with Ian. I thought Austin was very commanding of his area, and to be honest, based on that performance alone, I'd like to see Austin start against Liverpool on Wednesday, even if Foster is well. I know obviously we could play this new keeper, but is 3-4 days enough to really throw him into a semi-final? It might be, but yeah.
Welcome, Nick, regular friend of the show. Thanks for joining us. Pick one, Drew. Out of these, I'll give the other one to Ian. Spence or Porro? One for you.
I'll go with Postman Porro. I think he's been getting some flack recently, and I think that flack's been fair. I don't think he's quite been, and I don't, it's easy to say, it coincided with the Real Madrid talk and his head's been turned. I just think we've, as with most players in our squad, we've somewhat run him into the ground a little bit. So it was good to see him looking a little bit fresher than he has done. Good cross for the goal. I mean, the Postman delivers when he's on point, and he does have a very, very good cross on him. So yeah, if we had to score him, I'd probably give him a pretty healthy 8 out of 10 for this weekend.
Yeah, and he has recently said he's very happy at the club. Well, what player who's not playing as a striker loves to get? They all love to get forward. We all did when we played. Everyone loves to get forward, and he just loves it at the club. I mean, and he's on a long contract. So, Spence, Ian?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Drew's comments about Porro. Thought it was one of his best games for Tottenham. Really, really solid. Took responsibility. Yeah, really pleased. Spence, I was really impressed with, and I like Spence. We were talking earlier about, and I've said this since last summer, before 18 months since Ange first came to the club. Spence at right back, Porro at right wing, because Porro can deliver a cross, he can invert, he can go inside, outside, he can go past a player, he's got a dig on him, he's got everything I think we need that Johnson doesn't have consistently. But Spence, I thought, was really, really good. And he was a revelation at centre-half. When you're up against players like Isak and they're not hurting you, you've done. He and Gray, I thought, kids, but 7th, 8th, 6th, 7th choice centre-halves. And I thought they both did brilliantly, and we didn't concede. Fabulous. Really, really, really pleased with him and for him. And he should be really proud of himself.
Right, Tom, Dragerson or Gray. I just want to mention Gray, just I like to post facts out there. Gray, I think, has now made his 21st or 22nd appearance for Spurs, which might surprise a lot of people in all competitions. But pick one, Tom, Dragerson or Gray.
I mean, I'll go with Gray. I just think the kid is special, and I think he will be, if not a future England captain, he will be an England regular, 100%. And I actually wouldn't even be surprised to see him make the World Cup team next year. Lots of people gone, we're harming his development by not playing him in his position, blah, blah, blah. Actually, I couldn't disagree more. What better way to learn about the game of football than experiencing playing in different positions? And ultimately, if he is going to turn into a defensive midfielder, then learning how to defend as a defender, as a centre-back, is going to, he's going to know what protection he wants as a defender in front of him, so then he can offer that when he's playing as that midfielder. I think he'll be amazing. I'm so pleased we got him. I know obviously lots of people are still annoyed that we spent 40 million on an 18-year-old in the summer and maybe didn't spend that elsewhere. But I just think if an opportunity to get a talent like him in arises, then I think the club done the right thing, jumping to get it before he ended up at Brentford. I mean, apparently he was literally just finished his medical at Brentford when we suddenly gave him a phone call and got him to come to us instead. And I hear many fans saying, "Oh, why how comes Brentford seem to pick up, like, find these signings out of nowhere, and how comes Brighton find these signings out of nowhere, and we've gone and made a load of signings that you'd probably expect those clubs to make in the summer, and we're all moaning about it. I think it's special. I really do. And the fact that he's also been doing what he's been doing with Dragusin, who is also young and not that experienced himself in that. Dragusin's only 21, 22. Like, he's not, he's not old himself. If Gray was doing what he was doing, playing alongside Romero, then you'd be like, he's got that person to lead him through. But actually, those two are kind of helping each other through, rather than sort of one leading the other.
Drew, you get Dragusin.
Well, just to follow on exactly what Tom was just suggesting there with regards to Dragusin, if Dragusin was playing like this and he had a fully fit Van der Ven next to him and a fully fit Porro next to him, then I would maybe have more questions than I do. But given that he's, him and Archie Gray are basically sort of coaching each other through games at the moment, and then, as we've just touched on with Porro, that was arguably his best game. So he's not been great the past few weeks. So I don't know. I think I did say the other day that I thought Dragusin was flattering to deceive, and maybe I was being a little harsh. There are times when I have been very disappointed, and I think to myself, "Oh God, what have we?" There's somebody, I think it was the Irish Hotspur, thinks we might have another Eric Dyer on our hands, and I don't think it's that bad. The things he does well are very good. He's very, he's good in the air. He is strong and powerful. He's pretty quick. He's not lightning quick. His turning's not great, but he can pass the ball. When he was playing for, I think was it Genoa or Genoa, or Torino. One of the, I was getting confused. But yeah, Genoa. He was good, and he's been asked to play in a completely different system. And again, it's one of those things like you just mentioned his age, 22?
Yeah.
And I forget that he's 22 because he looks like a bit of a beast. He looks like he should be about 28. And you have to take a step back and you go, hang on a minute, the kid's 22, completely different league. So yeah, I've got to give him some grace. I think hopefully he'll come into it a little bit more when Romero and VDV comes back, and you get a little bit more of a rotation into a more solid back line. I think, the hope is he can only get better. And just to touch on Archie Gray, I know people say, 40 million on a teenager. The way I look at it is it's not really, is it? Because it's all amortized. The way I look at it, he cost us 10 million this season. He's already paid that back. If it wasn't working out, we could probably get 30 million for him in the summer. So really, I think it's a no-brainer. You've got to give this kid a try. And thankfully it's worked out, and I can see him
you can take
come in.
If the only positive you can take for the injuries we suffered is Ange's given. I've never known a manager give so many people more game time, young players game time. I mean, even Mikey Moore and Lancashire have had game time. Or like Lancashire got sent off in Europe, didn't he? And and these young players are coming into what's a yellow squad. I mean, who out there would believe that Decky's 24? I mean, he should be 32, shouldn't he? The way he's playing, But yeah,
you mentioned it a few times there, Adrian, and Drew, you mentioned it as well, like with the rotation and stuff like that. I think we can all agree that last year there wasn't really that much rotation, which probably was part and parcel of maybe, I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories of injuries and Ange and all of this stuff, but that obviously may not have helped. But also, we only played 41 games last season.
Right.
We played one more game than is the minimum amount of games you can play in a season, and so maybe rotation isn't quite as necessary there. The one thing that I really hope that Ange has maybe got from all of this injuries is trust in some of the players he's had to use, like Spence. The fact that Spence has come in, played a few games now, and has been brilliant. Like, I don't think Spence has had a bad game for us since he's been used. Hopefully that means that he will get used more, which means that Porro gets more rest, which means that Porro is on top form more of the time. same with rotating Dragson in for. I mean, we bought Dragson in January, and he played like 2-3 games towards the end of the season for us. He didn't actually play that many games at all. So, like, I just hope that this will give Ange the trust in those players to utilise them more often, and therefore give our main players a bit more of a rotation and rest period. The one thing I would say with Dragson, I know I said I'll do Gray, and now I'm doing Dragson, but I think he's a fantastic defender. Like, I think he's very much like in the trenches, like last ditch challenges, headers and stuff like that.
Blocks.
And I think he is a defender who will be around for a long time, and he will always be at a pretty big club. For me, I'm not quite sure why we signed him, because he doesn't really match the profile of defender that Ange's system wants. He's not good at passing the ball on the ball, and this system relies on your defenders being confident on the ball. So it's just that was a bit of an odd one for me. But end of the day, like, I can fault him for some of the stuff he's done, but I think he's put in a real shift, and he is only young, and actually this hopefully will all be a good build of confidence for him moving forward.
Right, we move on, and Ian gets there's 3 in this next banner and 3 in the next banner, so you get 1 each. So to Ian,
no, I don't get to talk about Sark,
you can.
Bergvall, Kulusevski. I'll talk about Bergvall.
You quietened up there.
A little bit of like sinners. I didn't get to talk about Archie Gray.
We'll talk about Gray first. No, come on.
We've
got time.
Because otherwise we'll be here all night. I had a quip earlier. I said about.
So you like the player, obviously, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I just said Archie Gray's played
positions and every position. Yeah, I, that was funny. And be fair, in all his appearances, wherever he's been asked to play in every position, he's not looked out of his depth.
No, everywhere.
And he hasn't let us down once.
No, absolutely. Let me talk about Bergvall, because Bergvall, he was a player. He has taken longer to settle, but why should 2 18-year-olds settle and progress at exactly the same rates? Particularly where one's a young, a Scandinavian who's played in Swedish football, and one is an 18-year-old who's already extensive experience in the Championship, who comes from a long line of footballers dating back to the 1960s. Fathers, grandfathers, uncles, have all been professional footballers. So it's maybe, with what's in his blood, it's maybe not surprising he's developed quickly, and he has been an absolute revelation. But Bergvall, I thought, a few weeks ago, maybe he needs to go out on loan. Maybe he could do with dropping into the Championship, maybe even League One, and try and find a league that he can dominate. But he's come on in games, and the last few weeks he's suddenly looking like he's absolutely belongs to play there. And again, he's only 18. I think you've got limitations with what you get from all our midfield players. I mean, the boys were alluding to that earlier. I think we've got certain limitations in our midfield. In particular, I don't like the fact that I don't think there's a really great passer of the ball in the midfield. And who knows how good Gray is, because we don't get to see him play there. But Bergvall can pass the ball. In fact, that's one of my quibbles.
He's got a good long range pass on him as well.
Well, that's the point, and I think that's where I worry about Maddison, that he doesn't have that variety of pass to unlock a tight defence. But Bergvall's got good pace. He's got good upper body strength already. He's prepared to leave his foot in a little bit. We need to knock that a bit, because he'll get too many cards. But he's
6'2", like Archie Gray. They're both 6'2". These are units, these kids.
I think Bergvall is going to develop into a very, very good footballer, and his improvement is exponential at the moment. He's one of my, I don't know what he's thinking will be. Andrew's thinking will be for Wednesday night. He'll probably go with the most experienced players he's got, I imagine. I hear what you're saying about Austin. I suspect if Forster's available, he'll play him. Albeit, I'm worried about Forster. His distribution, his ball at his feet's crap. But Bergvall is another one, another player who I think is gonna really develop, and I'm really impressed with him. Really impressed.
Tom, you can pick one of these and add anything to what Ian's just said if you wish.
I'll let Drew have Kulusevski, so I'll go with Sarr. But yeah, Bergvall. I don't know. I said Sarr, and I'm going Bergvall straight away. But just to add to that, I think actually the more I've watched Bergvall, the more he just looks like the number 6 that we desperately have needed. Like he's actually not shy of a challenge and getting stuck in and winning the ball, but also he can pass the ball short, long, medium, and find his man more often than not. But he also has the ability to actually like take on a person and get out of a tight situation. Yes, there's the odd occasion where he will lose it whilst doing that. But again, he's 18 years old. He's only going to develop in the best ways to deal with those moments and stuff. And in fact, actually, like the handball goal that Newcastle scored, yes, was from his pass out, but that was him scrabbling to try and get on the end of a rogue pass from Pape Matar Sarr. So Sarr, I really like Sarr, and I think Sarr will have a season where he will end up scoring a lot of goals. Like I get real Yaya Toure kind of vibes in his striking of the ball and the way that he arrives at the edge of the box and stuff like that. I want him to develop Yaya Toure's composure on the ball and ability to pick a pass and a bit more like strength. He's quite gamely, isn't he? And limbs kind of everywhere at the moment. Hopefully,
he's very sure-footed with his passing, though, isn't he? Apart from being with unlimited energy, you know.
Hi Ben.
Hi Ben.
I think with his passing, he's not in the team to be a passer. He's in the team to be a runner. But what he needs to therefore do is when he gets the ball, is move it on quickly and then run into the next space to do stuff. He's not a creator. He's kind of like a late arriver in the box and stuff like that. I think the problem is that he's been kind of getting the ball from deep and giving it away stupidly on occasions, or trying to take on a man and stuff like that. Again, stats and eye tests, all of these things, but stats wise, he does lose possession quite a lot, and he always seems to unfortunately lose it just as our fullbacks and players start bombing forward, which then means they've suddenly got to turn around and run all the way back. But I think I do think he will develop into a fantastic player, and like I said, he does give me the way that he strikes the ball and some of the goals he's obviously scored already this season. In fact, he almost scored another one on yesterday. Does give me that sort of like Yaya Toure vibes with like, because Yaya Toure never used to like power a ball into the box. He would score from like 30 yards out. It was always like finessed in and side footed in, and that's what seems to be the way that Sarr's doing it as well. But yeah, again, I think a bit more. I think the problem is we have a lot of number. Not to use numbers for positions, but number 8s. We have a lot of midfielders who kind of do a bit of everything, but don't really specialize in anything. And that, we've probably got 3 midfielders, maybe 4, that suit playing as that box to box kind of player. Bentancur, Basuma, and Sarr. They're all that kind of box to box player, but we're always trying to shoehorn them in to play the more kind of deeper role that gets the ball and progresses it forward, which Bergvall, he did brilliantly on Sunday. And actually he did it. I can't remember what other game did he play. He played that position earlier in the season, a few games ago, and he played it. And again, I thought he was brilliant there. And I remember discussing on this show how well I thought he played there as well in that. But yeah, Sarr for me, good player. I've enjoyed him more coming on from the bench this season than necessarily starting games. But again, another young player. Like I think we had an average age yesterday of 23 as our team. It was our youngest starting team in the Premier League since 2015. So it was a young team. Okay, most of that is because Son didn't start, but it was our youngest team, and 23. That's ridiculously young for a Premier League team.
Just for a professional team in general, right? But yeah, I agree, Tom. We got lots of 8s and lots of 10s, which is great if you're going to a nightclub. But it would actually be quite nice to get a couple of real solid sixes in there. But I know I'm going to talk about Kulusevski, but just to touch on Bergvall, he's just a beautiful footballer. He's just got such a deft touch, and I think he's starting to get himself clued in. If you watch him play, his head's on a swivel. He's just looking left and right, and you can just see him sort of taking, pictures in his mind of just where people are and where he needs to be. And I just think, if we can nurture that and hopefully, not run him into the ground because of having to overplay him, I think he could be fantastic for us. But yeah, just to touch on just quickly on Kulusevski, not his greatest outing, but he's been doing so much for us recently that, again, I said it earlier, I got to give my, bad performances, which I don't really think there were too many, to be honest. I think he gave everything he could for the time that he was on the pitch, did some nice bits, some intricate bits of footwork. I could see him potentially, when Maddison came into the club, I thought that Maddison was going to be sort of like I think we all thought he was going to be a bit more of like the talisman. And I think Kulusevski has just taken that with both hands. And I could see him putting the armband on at some point and really, once he gets really comfortable in that central midfield role, really kind of commanding it. I think, as I say, not his greatest game, but, another solid, what was it? I think he played the whole game, I think, or at least 80, 85 minutes. So, yeah, another solid performance.
Right, I'm going to stay with you so you don't get the short straw out of these last three. Right?
All right.
Pick one.
Oh, Johnson. For those who don't know, I have been Johnson's, for better or worse, biggest backer, just because I felt like someone had to, because I felt like he was getting a very, very rough end of the stick at the beginning of his Spurs career. But unfortunately, you could be a one-trick pony, but the one trick has to be very, very, very good. And I don't think he's got quite got enough command of football to be able to take that honour just yet. I think the one thing I will say, the one thing I'll give him, is that I think we're in another situation where he's played more football than would be ideal. I think in a perfect scenario, you have somebody of more stature in front of him as the starting winger, and you have him more coming into games. I think he works better like that. I think you would see more out of his legs that way. I think his stamina needs work. And again, he's still young. It's something that you can actually work into players. I think Johnson 2 years from now is going to have more stamina than Johnson now. He's great at finishing. He's poor at taking on his man. He needs to work at crossing a ball. But when last season finished, I turned around on a couple of channels and I said, so long as he betters his numbers this season, I think you can't ask really for much more. Would I like to see more of an overall? Yeah, would I like to see more of an overall improvement in his game? Yes. Would I like to see a couple more assists on the board? Absolutely. But I'm not going to tear into a 22, 23-year-old and say he's worthless, he's crap, get rid. That's just not. That's not how I am with players. So I think 6.5, 7 out of 10 wasn't amazing. But yeah, as I say, he's played too much football, which is why I personally believe he doesn't track back as much as he should, because I've seen him track back, and when he's got a full tank of gas, he's pretty good. So yeah, I can't be too critical, but yeah, I'll leave it up to the rest of you guys.
I'll have a little take on Johnson because I was highly critical of him. I didn't want him at the club when I watch videos. I go and watch, but what do I know, right? But when he was getting the dog's abuse, and we played Coventry away, a game we should have lost, and he chips the keeper, having all that pressure on social media, I thought that's a composed finish. Now, the first season he was doing the Werner, hitting them over the bar side, all over the place, right? He only got 5 goals. This season he's got 11. So now I've seen composure. I've also seen some first-class finishes of him in the corner, right? And when people say tapping merchant, he's not. Even I'm looking at it now. You have to have that striker's instinctive awareness to be in position, even if Werner's hitting a cross against the box for him to tap them in. He is more than a tapping merchant. If you don't like the player, I get why Spurs fans will say he's a tapping merchant, because you get that. They'll bitch or anything they don't like, right? So, yeah, I get that. So I've warmed to him, and I still think he's got a higher ceiling. I certainly hope he has. Ian.
Yeah.
Slanky or Werner? I think
I'll make it easy, Ian. I'll take Werner. I'll take Werner.
You both just talk about Solanke.
2 weeks, was that 2 weeks in the Maldives or a week in Margate? I mean, are you kidding me? Solanke, I like Solanke. For those of you in the chat who weren't on earlier, I have been trying to post a link from, and I have found it, but it wouldn't let me post it on here, from 442 magazine, an analysis of Solanke's goals and the way he scores and the fact that he's not prolific with his head. Anybody who wants that, ask me for it if you're not in any of the WhatsApp groups that I'm in. Werner continues to disappoint. Desperately need one of Odegaard and or Mikey Moore to get fit. I don't see Werner playing a lot of football, bit part football this for the rest of this year if he stays at the club. Might be worth just giving a few quid to Leipzig and say just take him back, because he's in the way a bit. The trouble is Sonny's not at his best and may well be past his best. And people remind me he's the same age as Mo Salah. Well, there's chalk and cheese at the moment between the way, what they're delivering on the pitch. Solanke, I like Solanke. He's not going to be prolific, but if he gets the service, he'll score more goals than he is. But I absolutely adore his link-up play, his ability to hold the ball up, his intelligence, his work rate. He's one people are talking in the chat about players being run into the ground. Solanke, I'm really worried if he picks up an injury, because we really don't have anything there to cover for him. And if he gets a muscle injury with fatigue, then God help us, because we are going to need some goals if we're not going to fall further down the table. So,
Lancashire is an option. Lancashire is an option.
I don't think he trusts Lancashire yet. That's the bottom line, and that's an awful lot of responsibility on a. What is he 19 as well?
Yeah, he's 19.
So it's an awful lot of responsibility.
Elo Jivelez's loan agreement with Sevilla, I think, might be cancelled.
So what might be cancelled?
Elo Velez's contract is loaned to.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything of him yet, though.
He's at Espanyol, I think he's.
Espanyol, then, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So
he was at Sevilla last year in the
Espanyol.
Yeah.
But, yes, Espanyol are like in the relegation zone and not really using him. So it's the kind of murmurs that he's going to come back and get sent out on loan to wait for it, a championship team. That will make sense. Help him applies for the English game. That would be sensible for him. But
as you've got Werner, Tom, you can have Andy's game management as well, right? Before we go on to a few other bit of things, right? So,
okay, Werner.
Bye.
Bye.
Play on Ange game management.
Look, no. With Werner, you can just tell he is completely devoid of any confidence in anything at this present moment in time. He will still. The one thing I do like about Werner is that every now and again he suddenly decides that he's going to burn his right back and get to the byline and put a good ball across. I mean, against Wolves, he did it, and we probably should have scored from it. I mean, like I said, I didn't see the whole game yesterday and stuff, so I don't really know if he actually did that at all. But then he has these moments where he just can't seem to it's not that he can't seem to control the ball; he literally can't control the ball, and that's coming to him at 0 miles an hour and stuff. It's just, but my thing with Werner now, obviously, there's this seemingly that there's no break clause and we can't send him back, or if we do, we have to pay a bunch of money or whatever it might be. So, okay, he stays on the books for the rest of the year, but I would 100% not be registering him for the Europa League, rest of the Europa League. If it was a choice between registering him and registering Jed Spence for the rest of the Europa League, then Jed Spence 1,000,000% has to be in instead of Werner. It's so annoying that Mikey Moore got ill around this thing, because actually this would have been brilliant. He would have got such a good amount of game time over this festive period, which would have been fantastic to kind of see. But I am also one for not wanting to ruin a 17-year-old like before he's even got a chance to make it. But Werner he's on loan. He's been on loan for a year and a half. He's clearly not part of the long-term plans of us. So we just need to, as much as it's a financial hit, we just need to forget that he even kind of exists. And as frustrating as Sonny can be at times, at least Sonny can score a goal, which Werner just cannot do. And Sonny is also our player. Werner is not our player. That's where you have to have like the loyalty to the people that are actually signed to your club stuff. I mean, Drew, you sort of said like along the lines earlier that, Reguilon, he played well and he looked good. And if you have that Reguilon, why not keep him for the rest of the season and then focus our transfer efforts further up the pitch and along like that? And I don't wholly disagree with that. I definitely think we need to be looking for another attacker. Be it.
I mean, I feel like Reggie has shown probably in the couple of appearances that he's made. I think he's done more in those appearances than Werner has the majority of the season. Yeah. And I think you're right with the European League, with the Europa League thing. I think to keep the numbers right, you take out Forster, you put Spence in to keep the homegrown or the club
Spence
numbers right.
Count as homegrown, I don't think.
I thought he did. I thought, well, if that's,
he might.
The case, then
there was a weird reason, but oh no, right. It was. No, you're right. Yeah.
Sarr and Bergveld don't because they hadn't been with the academy. Right. They just came in as young kids, so they don't count. Right. And I think the B list works is you can have as many as you like on the B list. Is you have to be right on the B list. You can have as many players on the B list, but they have to have been with the academy for 2 years. But for the Europa League, 4 of those academy players have got to have been with the club 3 years. That's why we've got 2. That's why we've got a 23-man squad for Europa League football. Okay, go on, Drew. Sorry,
right. So So I was thinking that in terms of keeping the numbers right, you put Forster out, you put Spence in, so you've got the added benefit of having Spence there, and then you drop Werner and you put Kinski in, the new keeper. And basically, after the knockouts, because I don't think he can play until the knockouts, but you're hopeful, obviously, you can get through there. And then, he would be your goalkeeper for that going forward.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So a couple of bits.
I didn't want just on Solanke. I just think I love him. Obviously, he's not a Harry Kane. He's not a guy who's going to win you a game out of nothing. And I think we're, as Spurs fans, unfortunately, we're seeing what life without. We always wondered what would life be like without Harry Kane, and we are seeing probably what life is like without Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane masked over numerous injury issues we had. I mean, I remember under Conte and under Jose, we had injury issues not too dissimilar to what we're having now, which is why I don't necessarily jump on this bandwagon of Ange's training being the reason for the injuries. And the thing was that Harry Kane managed to stay fit, and Harry Kane would score 25, 30 goals a season, and that was it. So Solanke's not going to do that, but he works so tirelessly for the team. And he's got 7 goals in the Premier League as well as a bunch of assists. Like he has proven if you give him the chances, he will score. And actually, his stats before he came to us showed that he is a player who is bang on his expected goals ratio. He is a 1-for-1 on that. Whereas Kane was a massive overperformer of XG. he was always overperforming, which and Son always used to overperform his XG, which is probably why now with Son we're feeling like he's having this massive decline. Whereas actually, I think it's more that he's just kind of leveling out what he probably should be doing. I mean, Son scored plenty of goals this season, but we're just used to him doing a lot more.
He's got 5 goals, 6 assists in. He came on instead of being 17 appearances. That's still 11 contributions, but he's just looked knackered, basically.
Yeah, but if Son carries on that, this will then be his 7th or 8th season in a row where he's had double digits for goals and assists.
Yeah,
like not just combined, but he's had double digits of goals and double digits of assists. This will be like the 7th or 8th season in a row for us, or 6th even in a row for us. So, I think Son needs help. I don't think we need to get rid of him. I think he needs help in the form of someone who can compete with him for that position and rotate with him.
Mm-hmm.
And on terms of,
is the new kid left wing or is he right wing?
He's left
he
winger.
can play on both.
Yeah, he can play both sides, and he is a much more of a take on kind of specialist as well. But he has also got a very good shot on him. He scored multiple goals in the Asian in the Korean League this year.
He's got 12. He got 12 goals, 6 assists in 26 games, I think it was. So
I'm wondering. I think if you can get a bit more back in Son's legs, and hopefully give him get better second half of the season, and then sprinkle in Mikey Moore and Yang between, alternate those two and have those
Odegaard.
3. And with Odegaard as well, and just not have to rely on.
And even,
obviously,
even Richarlison can play on the left.
Right. I know, people go on about bloody Werner, and I know it's awful. I don't particularly want him in the club. Don't want to have to pay him out to ship him back. But in years gone by, I guess the one thing we should be thankful for, in years gone by, he'd been on a 3-4 year contract, and we'd be sitting here going, nobody wants him. We can't ship him on. So the only saving grace is obviously by the end of the season, we can just be done with him. And you say, that experiment, unfortunately didn't provide as much juice from the squeeze as we would have liked.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, although I wasn't massively overwhelmed with or very happy with the loan signing of Werner again after he wasn't amazing in the 6 months he had prior, I think Werner has ended up playing a lot more football this season than Ange ever really wanted him to play because of Odegaard getting injured, and then Richarlison getting injured, and Moore getting injured. So I think he's played a lot more than Ange possibly wanted. I think he won in there as a bit of an experienced head. He seems to be quite good with the dressing room. He seems to get on with players and stuff like that. So I think he was wanting him around, but I don't think he was wanting to play him. And I think that was pretty evident when he sort of called him out against Fulham, was it? I think it was. So, it's one of those things. But I know, so you put up about in-game management. This fallacy of he has no in-game management. It's just rubbish. Every coach has in-game management. I mean, look at Arne Slot today for Liverpool. You could criticise his in-game management because he should have probably taken off Trent Alexander-Arnold earlier than he did. So, you would say Arne Slot's probably one of the best in-game managers around. So you can always criticise what a manager's done, because in reality, I mean, we're sitting here doing a podcast talking about football as if we're, not that as if we're experts or anything like that, but there's a reason why we're here talking about it and not actually physically doing it. Those guys have done the work to get to the positions that they're in. Yeah, so I mean,
amazing, really, isn't it?
I'm going to give you a couple of facts, and then I'll get Ian to talk about a new signing first, and you can all have a chat about it. Right, these are the yellow cards. Pretty okay. It's okay at the moment, but I haven't got the others who've had 5 before. But if you get 10 yellow cards before game 32, you get a 2-match ban. That's that. Just on there is some light at the end of the tunnel in the injury woes, and we've got 8 really. Vicario, Odegaard, 4 of them are hamstring injuries, right? Vicario's broken ankle, Odegaard's hamstrings, Davies hamstring, Richarlison's thigh, Moore was illness, VDV's hamstring, Romero's thigh, Udogie was hamstring. Right. Back within 2 weeks, should see one or more of Richarlison, VDV, and Romero.
What about Davis to that list?
Davis is on there.
No, I think
no, within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think he's
back. Yeah. Well, I said one or more of them. More. Oh, Davis to that. Yeah. Okay, I missed that one.
One of more. Yeah.
Right. When we're done here, when I'm upstairs in the bathroom, I'll be giving myself a right rollicking. There'll be lots of finger pointing in the mirror. Lots of finger pointing in the mirror.
I want to know what you're doing in your private time, Adrian.
Yeah. Right. So, Ian, we've signed a player. Right. Antonin Kinski, 21-year-old, 1.9, 6'2". Actually, he's between 6'2" and 6'3", but who's counting? Czech under 21 goalkeeper from Slavia Prague. His father shares the same name, exactly the same name.
Mm-hmm.
Good with his feet. Kinski is eligible to play in Europa League. There isn't enough letters allowed under 200 because he has played in Europa League for Slavia Prague, right? When the new squad is announced at the end of January, when we have to submit the Premier League squad as well.
He could be in it, yeah.
Yeah. So, come on, you've been following this kid for years, Ian. What do you know about him?
I know nothing about him other than you may have even posted it, a little YouTube snippet of him, which really impressed me. His goal saving was quite good, although there was nothing miraculous in it. But I did like the fact that he was comfortable on both feet when the ball was obviously at his feet. So that pleased me. I mean, I think it begs the question. I thought we would go for an experienced goalkeeper. I must be honest. I was a little bit surprised we went for someone that young, which means then what's happening to Forster? Is he going to go? I think he's going at the end of the season anyway. But that begs the question. And it's interesting that Austin played so well yesterday, having been at the club for 17 years, been in and around the first team for a number of years. And that's the first time a 25-year-old actually gets a game, which suggests that the people that, see him day in, day out in training don't think he's a first team player. Otherwise, why one have we bought another goalkeeper if he could go develop into a proper number 2 and challenge Vicario, or are they planning to punt him? And the same with Whiteman, because the boy Keeley at Orient is doing really well.
Yeah, he's broke their record for clean sheets. I think he's got 7.
3, 4, 5. That's 6 goalkeepers. That's 6 first team goalkeepers. I mean, if we had 6 centre forwards to choose from, we would be in heaven. 6 goalkeepers. I mean,
I like Gunter. Well, I like Gunter, like you say.
I forgot about Gunter as well.
Yeah, that would be the 7th. That would be the 7th goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I think what you'll find.
Whiteman and Austin, they were kept because they're homegrown. Let's be fair about this. They're homegrown players.
Let me make one point. Is that one of my criticisms of the club and of Levy is there seems to me to have been a real lack of joined up thinking in what the transfer policy is. What you buy this. So what is the thinking behind this player? David Clark, I don't know if he's still on, but made a comment about it's another player we've signed whose voice hasn't broken. I mean, I sort of get it. We've got, in fairness, Vicario who's 23, 4 or whatever he is. You've got
he's 27, I think.
He's 27.
He's 28. I think he's 27.
Ian, that's that. I mean, I think we were looking for a goalkeeper who's good with his feet.
Well, you've got Whiteman. You've got Austin, who is 25. You've got plenty of experience there if you're looking for age. So I don't see any harm in buying a young kid.
I just think it's because he's good with his feet.
What the thinking is. Does that mean Whiteman and Austin are going to be sold on? I just don't know what the thinking is.
So I think what you'll find, Ian, is at the end of the season, Forster's contract's up and Whiteman's contract's up, so they'll both be going most likely.
Okay.
So you've really got to have 3 keepers in your squad. So you're looking at probably Vicario as number 1. You got the new kid coming in as number 2, probably Austin as number 3, and then Keeley and Gunter will go back out on loan. I was thinking that would be the plan anyway, and then I watched a video from Irish Hotspur earlier, and he kind of sort of that was his sort of thinking behind it. Big up, Dave. So, and if you've seen, I don't know, David Ornstein as well put out a video.
I haven't seen that.
And he's basically suggested that Kinski's going to come in and actually push Vicario for the 1 spot, like right away. Like there's apparently the rumor is he's that good that potentially he could come in and be the immediate number 2. So we'll have to see. But that's the thinking. And apparently he was one that we were going to go for in the summer, and we've decided to pull up because of the situation. So we'll see.
If you're right, Drew, I think we could see him against Tamworth, or we could see him against Hoffenheim or Elfsberg. I don't think he's going to be risked against Arsenal away and Everton away.
He can only be in. Sorry,
against Elfsberg or Hoffenheim.
No, it has to be in the knockout. We have to get through, and then he can be registered for the knockout stages.
Yeah.
So we could see him for Tamworth, I think.
Yeah,
I'm not sure on that. I'm not doubting what you say, but that Europa League squad will have to.
No, you've literally got it written on this. Kingston is eligible to play in Europa League when the new squad is announced, which
will be first week in February, probably.
Yeah. You can't play for 2 clubs in the same phase of the tournament.
In the summer transfer window, I think you get 2 weeks after the window closes, unless they change the rule to name your squad. But in the January one, you don't. You've got to name it straight away.
Yeah, it is.
So January the 31st. Or the 1st of February, the squads have to be named.
Yeah,
and we would have played. You're right. I mean, I've got confused. We would have played both those games now, and hopefully we won't be in the knockout. Well, we won't be in the playoff stage of the group. We'd have got the points, right?
Just to follow on from what I think he's spot on with the fact that Whiteman and Foster will go in the summer, and then whether or not we keep around, because Keeley would count as a homegrown, right? So there'd be a chance that he could be kept to help with that quota, but then obviously you don't want to affect his maybe development in maybe going off to another team, maybe in the championship to get development there. Experience, we seem to be, or at least what has been coming up in this conversation, we seem to be relating experience to age, and that is completely lunatic, if you ask me, because Austin is not more experienced than Kinski. Kinski has played multiple games in Champions League qualifiers, in Europa League, in his league. Austin's played 1 professional game. So Kinski is way more experienced than what Austin is. So Kinski is coming in, and the thing is, if you look at the profiling of Kinski and the things that have been put out on social media and stuff, like I don't know the player. I'm not professing to know the player, but from the bits that I've seen and the bits and the stats that I've read and stuff like that, what he seems to excel at is commanding his box and collecting crosses. He has not conceded from a corner this whole season. Wow. That'd be amazing. And 2, he's very good with his feet. Now, if there's 2 things that you would say are probably Vicario's weaker sides of his game, he's not very good at coming for crosses and commanding his box, and he's not as great with his feet, although saying that, Vicario's probably got the best passing accuracy of all keepers in the Premier League this season. I say probably, he has. That's the stat, but also he's only ever passing it kind of 5 yards. So you would hope he would have the best stats in that. But like, this keeper just seems to be everything, or at least at the moment he seems to be excelling in everything that we want Vicario to be a little bit better at. I think he's definitely coming in for competition. And I'm hoping that he's going to have a run of games as keeper, and then when Vicario comes back, Vicario is going to be actually having to earn his place back in the team. I really like Vicario, and I think Vicario is
the ideal scenario.
He is a fantastic shot stopper. He's probably one of the
right,
best
guys. We're going to end it. Ian's got to go. Drew, have you got any last words, Drew, to say?
No, just very much appreciate you guys inviting me on. It's been
we'll get
lovely
you back.
to.
You don't escape our clutches. Once we've got you, that's it. You're like a Spurs fan. You're with us for life, right?
There you go. So, it's been lovely to meet and chat with you guys.
Can we put your show link up? Put your show link up for Tuesday, because Ian and me and Sean Butler will be doing.
I've got Sean Butler on. I mean, tell all your mates about it. Sean, probably of the YouTube community, I know is the best informed on corporate matters. So we'll be talking about where the club is the current ownership, how the ownership has got to where they are, the money they make, etc. But then let's talk about the links with potential owners. What's realistic? What's not? What the pitfalls are if you go down where the Glazers are, where Man United are with Radcliffe, the Everton situation and what have you. Stavely and her links with Iran and Qatar, is that what we want and what have you? So there's a lot we'll get our teeth into.
And also, should we won't run out of things to say, we never do, but of course we might even preview the Liverpool game, which is the following day.
Well, we will preview the Liverpool
and any latest transfer news as well that comes up, because apparently, if you believe the rumour, Johan Lang and Levy flew out to France today. Well, there's a lot of interesting players out there, whether it is Muani, who's gone from 8-1 in the bookies to be a Spurs player to 7-4. Something's going on here, right? So it might be a loan because he'll be on big wages at PSG. But we've been linked with David out there, Andrew Gomez, and
Skriniar.
Lots of. There's quite a few players in the French league we've actually been linked with, but we won't go through that today.
Maybe a plane out there.
I've got banners on about 30 players, right? But we're not going into that today. Right?
Daniel Levy was spotted having dinner with Rabiot's mum. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, maybe we'll get some luck. But I'm looking forward to this show on Tuesday. We need to start publicising it a bit, Adrian. I need to speak to Sean tomorrow. I've got the
Sean's great
in my
guy.
head. I need to have it written down.
Pump it in his show as well, in his WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Right, guys. I want to thank my guests for coming on. They know who they are, right? I want to thank everyone viewing the channel, all those that we're getting a bit of a loyal support in the chat channel. We do clash with a lot of shows, but we get a lot of hits on playback, right? So people either that's why we're very selective. We make sure we bring you good guests, knowledgeable, informed guests, right? And I want to thank Ian, co-founder. Normally he does this show, but he was doing Tuesday, so I said I'll take it over for if you like, and it's just turned out this way. I think it's been a great show. Well balanced show, actually, really good show. So I'm very pleased. So I will play you out with. Oh shit!